Welcome to the Wavy Digital Desk. I'm your host, Sarah Good, and today we're talking about getting your finances right in 2024. We have Michelle Ellis-Young from the YWCA of Hampton Roads here. She's the CEO, and she's going to talk to us more about this topic and sort of discuss the resources available at the YWCA, what conditions are like right now for most people and their finances, and more. So I want to bring Michelle on now. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Sarah, for having me.
Absolutely. I mean, just to start, can you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing, just what's the condition out there like right now in terms of people's finances?
Well, it's hard right now. There's no secret. You know, we're in what I would call sort of a tsunami of issues plaguing those that really are the least of them. Who are really struggling at this period of time, particularly from our lens, those that are experiencing domestic and intimate partner violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking types of devastating situations. And with those come the issues of financial abuse or financial lack of financial resources. And so we're seeing people who are really tapped out right now and really have nowhere to turn. And so places like the YWCA Hampton Roads and other partners are those last resources or only resources really that people have, particularly in the holiday season.
And in the general sense, you know, when we talk about getting your finances right, or we talk about sort of setting up your foundation, how important is that for that independence, for that person, for their life?
Oh, it's everything, because as we know, cash rules everything. And if a person can't afford to have some type of quality of life, then there becomes this issue of destitution. And what does that look like? And so creating healthy financial management practices, if possible, becomes critically important, and or finding those resources that will help you to get to some form of financial stability in order to navigate the tough waters that you might be in.
And we'll talk more about what's happening in Hampton Roads in a second. But first, you know, if someone comes to you or you're trying to set them up for success and sort of build those financial blocks, what is the first thing that you will do with them? What is the first step?
Sure. So our very first step for those that we work with is going to be safety planning for them. And the safety planning ensures that they are removed from the imminent danger that they're experiencing, so that the violence ceases and what that looks like. And then we start to case manage that individual to see what is it that specific person needs that's unique to their situation. So it's not a treat everyone the same type of model. Individualized care that helps stabilize the situation in order to get them resourced well. And what does that resource look like? Typically for our clients that are presenting, resources means that in their safety plan, we're trying to financially secure them as well. So if they're not employed, we're looking for some type of employment that generates income that will allow them to start to plan. Because the reality is, if they're appearing in our shelter, in most cases, these are individuals who are under-resourced. So they don't have a bank account to go pull money from to go to a hotel. They don't have family support that they can go be housed at family. And so they're coming to shelter for the most part, those. And we get some who are resourced and deal with them a different way. But when they don't have that, we have to ensure that they have financial means to take care of themselves and or those that come with them. So we look at, do you have a job? Do you have a bank account? And what does that look like? Do you have child support? Because if you're presenting with children, we need to ensure that we're working with our human services partners to get you the resources you need. So whether that's the public assistance that they need, or it's navigating the systems of the child support that is there for the child to help that child. Whether or not they have a bank account. A lot of our clients don't have bank accounts, and so we work with our banking partners on some of those low-risk accounts and ways that individuals can start to save money in order to build towards self-sufficiency.
And let's talk about saving. So, you know, right now, grocery prices are high, housing prices are high. I'm sure it's high just in general for the holiday season as you see people spending, or maybe that's the time of year that you do need to spend money on your friends and family if you're able. How do you even start saving? I mean, how do you help these clients even just start with those basic numbers?
It begins with awareness. So you have to know your situation in its fullest. And oftentimes, if you're in a situation that the partner may be the controller, and that's what the abuse is stemming from, the power and control issues. So you kind of have to know what you're dealing with first off. But we talk about knowing your four walls and securing your four walls. What are those four walls? Well, it's the basics, kind of like what Maslow has taught us. It's your shelter, it's your utilities, it's your food, it's your transportation. We need you to secure those four walls, because without those four walls, that's going to lead to some other issues. If you don't have transportation to get to work, then you can't build income that helps you to get housed, take care of your family. If you don't have food resources, then hunger adds another layer of complexity to an already complex situation. So when we talk about those basics, knowing what you're dealing with, securing those four walls, and then we start eating away at whatever those other areas that you might need to focus on. So for someone who has stable income, maybe we need to look at what your debt looks like and what your income to debt ratio looks like, and how do you start chipping away at that piece of your life. Maybe for someone else, it may be starting that savings account. And I just remember I hear my grandmother's voice. She's like, baby, pay yourself off the top. I don't care how much money you make. You put $1 of some sort away for yourself and start to build. And I know people say, I don't have $1 to spend. I don't have $1 to spare, because I literally am living as I go. But that dollar can build up to something greater if we just keep at it. And remembering your why. You left the situation. There was a why behind that. The stronger the why, the stronger the try. And so it's going to be slow. It may be hard, but it doesn't mean that you quit, because you've made progress to get out already. And that in itself is a lot, right? And so now you start looking at, how do I save a little bit? How do I secure through the systems that are available to me some means to be able to take care of myself in this difficult moment? And that assistance is not a death sentence. It's not forever. It's there to provide the support you need when you need it. And so I think sometimes people lose sight. I've never had to, ask anyone for anything, or my pride gets in the way, or, I don't want people to know my business. Well, when you're strapped and in a dire situation, your business is to get out, and you have to use the resources that are available to you.
And that's interesting, because so you're looking really specifically at who the person is, what their situation is. It's not one size fits all, as you said. And you're really trying to set them up, whatever that plan might be for them. So, but you did just then, give some basics. So it's putting that $1 away or putting certain things away. I did want to ask you right now, for most people, a lot of their income is just going to housing. Can we just talk a little bit about how that affects the rest of your life and maybe the rest of how you're spending in a month?
Well, it's interesting. I was reading something yesterday or this morning, I can't recall, and it was talking about a woman who she had a decent job and wanted to purchase her first home, but she couldn't afford to purchase it in the United States, so she moved to Italy, where she was able to get it for like 50,000 euros, which is about $62,000 in American dollars. The average person who's living paycheck to paycheck or in some traumatic situation probably doesn't have even that much. And so when housing prices are astronomical, and we're talking about renters, right? People who are in apartments typically, or they're in rental properties, and unfortunately, they may not be the even best rental properties that we would definitely want to secure our house for our housing. It becomes critically important for them to not to have, how do I say this, Sarah? To have what they need to live within their means. But it doesn't mean living within your means has to be life-threatening housing. And I hate to say it that way, because the housing market today is not even a housing market for someone who has a stable job. It's hard right now. And so for our clients in particular, and I hope I'm answering your question, housing, if people can't have safe and secure housing, they can't function. And so if they can't function, that means they can't show up at work whole. If they can't show up at work whole, that means that their children are not being taken care of. And so it's critically important for us to think of creative ways of how do we solve this housing crisis that we're in that allows the playing field to be leveled for all individuals, which includes those that are marginalized, those that are in very devastating situations. And so we work very hard with our continuum of care partners. These are sister organizations across Hampton Roads where we work collectively to try our best to stabilize individuals. We work very hard with landlords in community who are victim friendly because they realize the importance of being able to help women and children. We do service men as well to help stabilize their lives, but it's also a way for them to do a community good and give back as well. And we work very hard with our hotels in community to provide short-term living quarters with individuals. But foundationally, housing is absolutely critical.
And I just want to ask, with that, and, for people listening too, I want to say, I'm sure people are familiar with what's happening with housing in Hampton Roads, but if they're not, I mean, the Hampton, at least I know that we're, South Hampton Roads, but in Hampton, like the housing wait list just opened up for the first time in years. I mean, so that's where we are. We're at capacity. We're hearing that from a lot of nonprofits for different stories and reports that WAVY's done. So there isn't this resource available if you are sort of in that bucket, and then as housing prices skyrocket. In downtown Norfolk, for example, you see a lot of amenity buildings popping up. You see some of these other things happening, but those are luxury buildings.
Right.
Those aren't going to be priced probably as reasonably as maybe some other options. So I guess... Yes, I mean, I'm just trying to wrap my head around, what you're saying, and I think it's interesting that you're saying people that have resources maybe even want to move to a different country because living might be more affordable.
Yeah, it's a stretch on everyone, right? And it's not to say that our municipalities are not working hard to solve problems that are the social ills of our communities. But when individuals are living paycheck to paycheck, they are truly in survival mode. And what does survival mode look like? Survival mode means I just need my basic needs met in order to just make it to the next paycheck that I have, and so this housing crisis that we're in, it's not unique to Hampton Roads. It's not unique to just Southampton Roads. It's a national crisis, and it's causing us to really, from a social services perspective, a human services perspective, but even an economic development perspective, is to look at ways that we can collectively bring our resources together to build a stronger community through the power of many versus in silos of trying to solve the problems that we all are grappling with. These are Hunger Games that we see every single day.
And I want to talk a little bit about home ownership, just because we sort of broached that a little bit. But, most people are renting because home ownership is just such a daunting goal, I think, right now. What are you even seeing? Are people coming in and they're asking for advice or resources to help build a home? I mean, how does it even start? Are you hearing that question right now?
It doesn't even get to that question at this point, right? Because my first thought of coming in is get me out of this situation, right? I need help, whatever that help looks like, but I need to get away from this situation. And then it's getting away with whoever I need to bring with me. So we're presenting with more kids. We're presenting with elders who are in the home with the person who's been victimized. So we're trying to stabilize all of these entities. And the individuals who are presenting in our case, they're not even at the level of home ownership yet. Doesn't mean they won't ever be, but right now it's housing stabilization. But what if we do get that client who's well-resourced, but they don't trust systems because maybe their perpetrator is connected to systems or can better navigate the systems or has cut off their resources, et cetera. They make it to us. Then we're looking at how they can do some of the same things by separating accounts if they can. Because if they're not cut off, we can work with them that way through their employment. Maybe there's some resources that are available through employment that they just didn't think they'd have to think about. Or, maybe it is connecting them with some of our partners, our banking partners, to start to talk about what home ownership might look like if they're ready to have that conversation. But the number one obstacle to home ownership for most people that have a desire for home ownership, but it's the payment, the down payment, and it's the closing costs. That's the number one obstacle, because they're not walking around with that disposable income that says, I think I want that house that's $350,000 and here's 20% of that, right? That's not happening for the most part for those that we see. But if we're able to start planting seeds, because there are many programs that are out there that talk about first home owners and home ownership and how home ownership from an economic justice perspective helps to build generational wealth in certain communities, then we educate. It may not be the reality today, but it certainly can be the dream tomorrow. And what do we need to do in the gaps to get from the reality of today to the dream of tomorrow that will allow you to actualize what home ownership might eventually look like?
And just to jump back, you're talking about banking partners. I'm sure, do some people come in and they don't even have a bank account set up?
They don't. Have never, I remember seeing my grandmother go up under her mattress, and we thought the mattress was like a treasure chest, because the mattress was where she kept all of her important papers. It was where she kept her extra money. And it wasn't until probably in my teens when she realized she wanted home ownership that she started a bank account. I remember this like yesterday. And there are many people who are from low to moderate income families that the paycheck doesn't even make it to a bank account. So direct deposit, that ain't happening, because if it goes directly into my account and I have this debt that's over here and people have access to my account, my money gets swooped up even before I can see it, right? And so there's that uncertainty about if my money goes into a bank, I don't know what that's going to look like for me, right? Or some people like the physical control of their own money. You give me a paycheck, I get the paycheck cash. Unfortunately, sometimes at places that charge astronomical fees. But it's probably because they have credit that's in that needs to be repaired that causes them to not be able to open a bank account. And so what we like to tell people is don't be afraid of the banks, because we have partnerships with banks who will work with individuals. I can't guarantee that they're going to be approved for the account, but there are other types of accounts. It's all about education and information. And if we can get people paired with those that educate well on how to start a solid financial plan for yourself, even living paycheck to paycheck, even with bad credit, even with chaos going on in your lives, we can start to build something better for them.
And you've been at the YWCA since, I think, appointed CEO since 2021. Mm-hmm. So that is really interesting, that post-pandemic, if you will, sort of world. But there's been a lot of changes with SNAP benefits and housing, obviously, and the job market. Are you seeing these issues perpetuate sort of year after year? Are you seeing shift after COVID? I'm just curious.
Well, the COVID funds have dried up, right? And so there was kind of this pandemic money that was floating people, okay? But that float is over, and now people are drowning, okay? So the waters have gotten deeper. We're not seeing that there's been a decrease in those that are presenting for services. We're seeing a drastic increase. That again goes back to, if things are spiraling out of control, they were already out of control, and now they're exacerbated because now we have this financial burden. And when you have this financial burden, people start to act out in different ways. So when you have these two people clashing, whether they're in the home together or intimate partners together, then you start to see escalation in violence in community. So we're seeing decrease in crime, but we're seeing an increase in domestic violence. That's because people are unhinged and tapped out. They don't know how to work together, right? And so as the pandemic, we're in pandemic, but post-pandemic, so we're not actively in the state we were in 2020, but we're starting to see the residual impacts of what the pandemic has done in community. And it has caused people to have to live differently than they were before the pandemic. It's caused more violence. Because mental health and mental illness is escalating. It's causing re-traumatization because that trauma that was unchecked and undealt with is starting to surface. And so now we're living in a time, particularly in service industries or social service industries and human service industries like ours, where we have more than we can handle. And that's the truth. The reality is that there are so many people out there that need assistance, and the number of providers that are out there are just not sufficient to take care of what's out in community right now. But we do our best that we can, all of us.
Absolutely. Well, it's just interesting heading into 2024. Can't believe it. It's been 3 years really since some of those effects probably started really taking into place. But I just want to talk about this holiday season in particular, because we were speaking about it even before we went live. For people to know, before we even get to 2024, what have people been experiencing that you're seeing right now in this holiday season? I mean, we're seeing drives, not even be able to reach their numbers, even on the donation side, because people on that end are probably also experiencing difficulties as well.
Well, going back to the number of providers that are out there, but the number of people that are needing the support, right? And, a few things as we tend to start approaching holiday seasons or in holiday seasons that surface. So the first thing I'll deal with of that question is what we're seeing. We tend to see a lull in the holiday time in the domestic realm of working with individuals, because the holidays are a joyful time, right? They're supposed to be when you're really happy and celebratory, and you're surrounded by your family and friends. And people are trying to just make peace and make do. They don't want to disrupt the family unit, whatever that looks like. It might be dysfunctional to you, but it's the family we have, right? And so they try to mask that as best they can so that they don't disrupt the little piece of harmony. But then we see after that it ticks back up again, the violence, because the honeymoon of the holiday is over. And so in this moment, while we might not see, we're trying to stabilize the overcrowding that we already have, we may not be adding to it, but we know it's going to come. And then we have the piece of the joy that people want to experience. So you have service providers who are now extended to other individuals who are now leaning on them for the support, right? Other organizations. So you might have one primary organization who's accustomed to doing all of this great work for toy drives and to make sure families have what they need for the holiday. But they only did that last year for 2 or 3 organizations. Now there's 6 or 7 knocking at their door. And so they're trying to stretch their capacity on this side, but yet the number of donors who are giving to them has not increased. And so the stretch is real. How do we best support those that need the support given what we have? And it's a what do you call it? It's a mold game, right? Mm-hmm. You have to sometimes, okay, I'm accustomed to giving Sarah 8 different things for her family, but now I can only give Sarah 3 because I have to move the other 5 over to 2 other families. And so we try to look at how do we just leverage what our community is giving us, how do we impact those that we're servicing every day in order to meet their needs so that their holiday feels a little special too.
It's a lot to work with. And I think going into 2024, I know that is our focus, just in terms of, I think people want to restart in the new year. Mm-hmm. But what's happening right now sets you up or doesn't set you up for that new year.
It's a new year on a calendar, right? Mm-hmm. It may not be a new year on your situation. And so that's why our work becomes so important, to work with individuals on how to plan. And I know it sounds crazy. You talk about, someone who's in a dire situation and you want to think about planning. Yeah, part of the planning was the move out. But now we have to figure out, we can't stay where we were. We have to plan to where we want to be. And so our work is really, it sounds dire. It sounds like, boy, that's great to go to work and deal with that every day. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope. We have to hang on to the hope that it can get better, because we want our clients to see that hope as well. We want our guests who are in our shelter to see that hope as well. And it resonates in our shelters. Sure, there are individuals there that feel hopeless, but there are also individuals there that feel great hope. So even a situation such as they're looking forward to the change of the clock, because the change of the clock means I get an opportunity to begin again and do something different and do something new that will hopefully lead me on a path of resilience that does not allow me to look back at what was, but look forward to what's to come.
Well, thank you. And I think, for people who are maybe in a situation now and almost seeing this new year as a change, maybe to even contact you or other organizations that are available and make a change, what's the best way to get in touch with you? I always, just want to check to see, is it calling? Is it emailing? Is it the website? I mean, what's the first step?
It's all of it, right? The first step is if someone is in intimate danger, I'm losing my words. Immediate danger, yes. In this season, mm-hmm. We want them to call our crisis services hotline that's available 24/7, 365, and that's 757-251-0144. Because first thing we want to make sure is we get you to safety. But then, if you're just seeking assistance to figure out, what should I do? Maybe I'm preparing to leave. So what should I do before? What should I do during? And what should I do after? You can reach out to us. Our website is YWCA-SHR.org. Our phone number during regular business hours is 757-625-4248, or someone can reach out through our volunteer. That line gets answered. It's volunteer at ywca-shr.org. All of those are ways that you can connect with us. Our goal is to make sure that people feel safe, people feel secure, people have hope, and people can move on to where they need to get to in a safe manner.
And before we go, I've taken up a lot of your time, but I just want to see, are there any sort of top tips, I think, for people that you just want them to either keep in mind or just start as action steps? Action
steps for anyone. I don't care whether you're in a situation. I do care, but what I mean is whether you're in an imminent danger situation or you are just thinking about what the future looks like, create some type of budget. Always have a budget that's looking at your financial picture, because you never know when that picture is going to change. And when that picture changes, it's not the time to start trying to figure it all out. If you document things and start looking at how do you clip some of those things little by little, it helps to reduce the angst, the stress, and the anxiety that you might feel about building financial stability for yourself. But always have a budget. And in having a budget, live within your means. It's great to have wants, but you gotta take care of what you need at the same time. And if you find yourself overextended, there is help that's out there. There's nonprofit help, there's help, there's financial institution help. There's help to assist you that you don't have to feel embarrassed, you don't have to be ashamed, you don't have to feel like you're in it by yourself. We just got out of a pandemic. People have financial issues. We're here to support, and if we can't support, we can help to navigate that support.
And just to go back to something else you said about people feeling that shame to reach out, I think that is something that is critical. I think the opportunities are there. Hopefully more people will be able to give as they themselves get into maybe better financial situations. But for that person, again, just to reiterate, what would you say to that person who just wants to handle it on their own?
Get over your shero or your hero mentality. People are here to support community. That's what makes community. People willing to step up and say, hey, we can help you with that. Because the reality is that there are a number of people who you don't think understand your situation, who have already been in your seat. And that's where that great compassion comes in. So it's not about making the whole. It's how you dig yourself out. And you don't have to dig yourself out by yourself. There's a community of support that is willing to help walk it with you. Now, we don't want you to go back, but we want you to get out.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much. I mean, you can just feel the passion of what you're saying as well, just in this room. And so I know that must carry over into your work.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I mean, is there anything else? I know that we didn't get to all of the YWCA's resources, but is there anything else that you really just want to highlight for people to know?
I just want people to realize that the struggle is real for many people. And while your struggle may be different than someone else's struggle, we offer grace and community to support each other. And that's what the nonprofit community does. That's what partners like YWCA Southampton Roads does in concert with a number of great organizations across the community, is to leverage collective capacity for collective impact that changes lives every single day. So when you think about the holiday season and when you think about year round, how can I make my community better? Think about those that are doing the work every single day. And just as that dollar that you're going to save can make a difference long term, that dollar that you give to a nonprofit can also make a difference long term.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for giving us so much of your time this afternoon. And to anyone joining us, there's going to be more information up on wavy.com. We also have the link to the YWCA's website to find the resources. I'll put the phone number up again for people that need to reach out. But Michelle, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure to sit here with you today.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, I feel it. Thank you so much for giving your time, especially during this season. So thank you.
Thank you.